Greetings, everybody, and welcome. Macro Talk 2. It is Thursday, May the 8th, 2025, and we have a lot to talk about today. On Tuesday, I covered some of the theory and background of stereopsis, depth perception, the brain, and basically imaging in 2 dimensions, a world that is in 3 dimensions. Very fascinating stuff. And it's all because this month is competition month. Well, it's always competition month, isn't it? But it's stereo this month. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody who possibly would want to enter knew everything they needed to know. And today, it's going to be a very practical discussion of the different ways that you can image stereo, make stereo pairs, and enter this competition. And if I have one overriding goal today, it is to convince people that have never tried this that it's not that difficult, and show you exactly what you need to do in order to make a good stereo pair. And that's my goal, is to get as many people involved as possible. So Saturday, we have a PAZOOM. A PAZOOM is a meeting we do every 2 weeks. I meet with all my Patreon folks, and we meet for 2 hours on a Saturday morning. And this week, what we're going to do is dive even deeper into stereo. I'm going to do a little workshop and go over all of the things we don't get to cover today. How to post-process stereo image pairs, how to retouch, how to export, how to do all kinds of things that we won't have time to cover today. Though today will be the basics, and we will cover most of that stuff. So that will include also all the usual PAZOOM stuff that we do. So it'll be a busy Saturday. Exciting news for all our Lester Lefkowitz fans. I spoke to Lester this week, and he is coming on the program again. He's coming on to show us all his secret for cataloging in Lightroom. He has developed a technique that he guarantees will allow you to find all of your photographs within a second or two. And he's going to come on, and we're going to talk about it. He's going to show us this technique, and I have a feeling we're going to have a tremendous amount of fun. I will show you how to lose photographs permanently with little or no effort in Lightroom, but he'll show you how to find them. So that's going to be fun. We don't have a date or a time. I don't know whether we're going to do it live or if we're going to record it and put it out as a video. We'll do something, and you'll get to see it. So it should be coming up fairly soon. All right. A quick update. A couple of inquiring minds made questions to me last week about the 2 projects I've been talking about, the microscope focus blocks and the polarizing platforms for polarizing birefringent crystals. And I wanted to tell you exactly what these things are very quickly, just so you know, in case you're interested in getting one. Your opportunity to sign up will be vanishing very soon, because this involves a lot of work. What we're talking about is this thing. This is an Olympus microscope that has been chopped up into, well, one piece here, the focus block. This device runs off a motor over here, which is controlled by the wires in the back there. It's controlled by a stacking device, like a stack shot or a Wii Macro. It holds your camera and lens on the top, and the whole thing, a few additional things I've added to it. It bolts to an optical table or whatever table you're using. The whole thing is self-contained. I do everything. I take the microscope apart. I service every moving part in the focus block. I take everything apart and then put it all back together to where it works as smooth as butter. Is that a thing? No, silk, as smooth as silk. There you go. And put it all back together and arrange it so it's ready to plug in and use. The reason people like this is you cannot buy one of these. They don't make them. This is 10 times as precise as a Wii Macro, and 20 times as precise as a stack shot. This thing will move between 0.05 and zero point 0.1 microns per step. So this is for people who are into high magnification and want a precision stepping device. You cannot go out and buy one. You have to make one, or get me to make one. And that's what this is. So if you want one, you need to let me know. Somebody else, another inquiring mind, wanted to know an important feature of the new polarizing platform for photographing birefringent crystals. They wanted to know what color was it going to be. So there you go. There's one that's all the segments are finished. It's black and bluish and yellowish and gray. And the whole thing is, this one is empty still, but it will have all the electronics in it. And these things I'm also making for a very limited time. They take forever to print. They really do. I mean, it takes about 7 or 8 days of the printer running constantly to make enough parts for 10 of those. So yeah, I've grossly undercharged for the first batch, but I'm gonna stick with what I said I'd do it for. But they're not gonna be that cheap going forward. But get in touch with me and I'll tell you what all it will cost. So that's it. It's not an advertisement. It's really just to let those of you who are waiting know that your focus block is almost finished, and I should have the polarizers ready within a week. Good. Okay. All right. But let me remind you that the code, the printing code for both of these devices, the motor mount for the focus block and the entire assembly for the polarizer, is available on the Walls app. The G code is over there. So if you want to make your own, knock yourself out. I've even put a shopping list for you to get all the parts you need to put it together. Okay. So today we're getting up to speed on stereo imaging, and we're going to be talking about basically 2 things. They're the 2 things that Graham asked about just as we were starting this session. He asked me to compare and contrast the 2 common methods that most of you would be using, which is either true stereo, which is where you take 2 photographs from different perspectives and then combine them in your brain to make a 3-dimensional object out of it. That's the way it used to be done, and is still done by some aficionados of that. The second method is called synthetic stereo. That is where you, instead of shooting 2 stacks from different perspectives, you shoot 1 stack from one perspective, and the computer program, Zerine actually, in your computer. I keep saying computer. That doesn't sound very good. Anyway, what it does is it shifts the perspective artificially to create 2 images instead of just the usual 1. It can create more than 2, but 2 for you to view as a stereo pair. Today, I am going to show you and talk about the real stereo, or the true stereo, when you use it, what it does, how it works, and how you do it. And then we'll get into the synthetic stereo, and I'll show you an example of exactly how you make a stereo pair. And it is honestly not nearly as complicated as you might think. It's pretty straightforward. There are some things I'm not going to touch on because they just would take a lot more time. One of them is post-production of a stereo pair. What you can and cannot do, I'll touch on. But how to actually retouch or to edit a photograph after you've made a stereo pair, that's something I'm going to cover on Saturday. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And we'll start first. I put into this discussion 10 top tips. So I'm sure that nobody actually takes notes during one of these chats, but you might want to write some of these down if you're new to stereo. The basic guidelines I'm going to give you now for the 2 techniques are solid guidelines that I have discussed with the father of this whole synthetic stereo business, Rick Littlefield. I met with him for hours last night, and we talked about all of this and he is in full agreement that these 10 top tips are something that will be of value to you. Okay, if you're gonna, and he knows all about this stuff, so he wouldn't have let me get away with anything if he didn't agree with it. So there are two techniques. One is true stereo, one is synthetic stereo. There are lots of other ways you can make stereo images. We're not going to talk about any of them because you're not going to want to do any of them. These are the two good ones. These are the two ones that are likely to result in pictures that you'd want to submit to a competition. When do you choose one over the other? Well, very briefly, like I just said, synthetic stereo involves taking a stack and then from that stack letting the computer make two images that are from different quasi perspectives. It's very sophisticated how it does it, using a depth map, and it gives you two outputs. But that is a very straightforward image collection process. If you've ever focus stacked, you know how to make synthetic stereo, or you will when I tell you the other steps. True stereo then involves moving your camera at some point, because you're going to take a photograph of something and then you're going to move your camera left or right to get a new perspective on the subject, and then you're going to shoot it again. So when do you use that method, and when do you use synthetic stereo, and which one is better for your subject? Well, top tip number one. For subjects larger than a kumquat. Oh, Graham put his hand up. He doesn't know what a kumquat is. For subjects larger than a grape, use true stereo. Move the camera and focus, by the way, with the camera's focus ring, the lens's focus ring. If the subject is smaller than that, smaller than a medium-sized grape, you are better off to focus using a focus rail by moving the camera, and you are better off using synthetic stereo. So comparing the two is kind of spurious because they don't compare, because you use them for different things. Never use true stereo for tiny subjects. It causes horrible parallax. It's very difficult to get images that fuse. The distance of movement of your camera becomes so tiny laterally. If it's too much, then the parallax gets unbearable. So you have to make tiny, precise moves. It just doesn't lend itself to small subjects. However, synthetic stereo was designed for small subjects. It is absolutely the best way to create a stereo pair, is by using synthetic stereo for subjects smaller than a grape, and for larger than a grape, use the focus ring on the camera and use the stereo pair. It doesn't mean you cannot, use the true stereo. It doesn't mean you can't use the motion of the camera and create a synthetic stereo pair of larger subjects. It just is going to create all kinds of problems, especially in the deeper parts of the photograph. Rick actually did a focus stack of a view of it's a feather sitting in some grass in a park, and he had shots all the way through infinity, basically. And while the feather was actually pretty impressive, and he did this with his synthetic stereo technique, the background of the photograph looked really flat, and there was no depth at all in it. Of course there wouldn't be, because there was only one photograph of all that part of the deeper part of the scene. So the point is, you don't want to be using the wrong method, and therefore there's really no point at which they overlap. But if you were to compare them, I personally believe that the most compelling images come from synthetic stereo. I think it's the best way to do it. And seeing as I shoot mostly things that are much smaller than a grape, it's what I use. I hope that kind of answers your question, but certainly the cutoff is not a clear line. It's kind of a fuzzy area. But let's say if something is small, then think synthetic. If something is large, like a bowl of flowers, think shifting the camera. True stereo. Okay, all right. So we've talked about what they are. How you actually do them would be, if you're going to do true stereo, you would set yourself up on a solid platform, say a tripod, a solid tripod that has a reference rail on it, a rail that you can slide the camera on. I was going to set one up, but ran out of time this morning. It's not complicated. The thing is, you would shoot a stack, so you'd need a rail perpendicular to a rail, like 2 manual rails or a manual rail on an automatic rail, whatever you wanted to do. You would shoot the stack. I say rail, but you should be using the focus ring as I just mentioned. But either way, you shoot the stack, then you move the camera and repeat the stack. The movement of the camera is small. Classically, it was taught that you would move the camera about the intraocular distance, which is about 6 centimeters. That would be as far as you'd want to move it. Like I said, with smaller subjects, you'd have to move it less, but when you get into smaller subjects, it's so much harder to do. It's very hard to get a good picture. You can actually move the camera in an arc. You'll hear people say you should move the camera perpendicular to the axis of the photograph, but you can actually move it in an arc to avoid getting too much of a perspective shift. If you're going to do that, you have to use a special piece of software. It's called the Stereo Photo Maker. I don't know if you have to buy that or if it's free, but it is really the only way that you can correct for the weird shift in perspective you get when you use this technique. If you think of a building, say a cubic building, and you shoot it from one angle, potentially the building will look as if it's fading into the distance on one side. Let's say it's a big building. When you move the camera, it can shift to where the building is shrinking into the distance on the other side. So you get this weird inconsistency in the depth perception. And that's what happens when you move the camera, especially when you move it further than you should. So Stereo Photo Maker is really the only software that is going to consistently correct for that and give you a decent picture. So if you don't have that, you probably should avoid true stereo. And remember rule number 2 for winning this competition when Rick's judging it is to photograph something small. He likes small stuff and likes to be surprised by it. So a bowl of flowers probably would not be small enough to get him particularly excited. But if you're going to do that, you need to use Stereo Photo Maker. Okay. Tip number 2 was Stereo Photo Maker. That's a very important thing if you're going to use camera shift in true stereo. I don't think there's anything else that will do it to your satisfaction. If you try to do it manually in Photoshop, you have to deal with all those perspective shifts, and it makes a mess. Step number 3. For a smaller subject, you need less sideways movement. If you're going to try true stereo, you have to remember that. And the more your magnification increases up to and above 1:1, the smaller your separation has to become until it is really minuscule, millimeters of separation. So the bottom line, I would use real stereo only for the largest subjects, and I would use it with a focus ring on the camera, and I would use a Stereo Photo Maker to stitch the things together. Okay, tip number 4. Synthetic stereo is the only way to create good stereo pairs at a macro scale consistently. And it's the easiest way. Okay? I told you before, and I've told you many times, that if you're photographing larger macro subjects, If you're shooting subjects that are, again, bigger than a pea or a peanut or a grape, something like that, then you should be using the focus ring on the camera. That should also tell you, if you're using the focus ring on the camera, you should probably not be using synthetic stereo. It doesn't work as well with big subjects. So think big, real stereo, small, synthetic stereo, and you'll probably stay safe if you remember that. Okay, how do we make a stereo pair in Zerine Stacker? Okay, what is the ideal stack size? Somebody is probably thinking that already. There is no real ideal, but as you get more magnification, you're going to have bigger stacks, and you can do really huge stacks. I've done stacks of 1,000 images, but for stereo, you're perfectly good with 15 to 30 images in your stack. You don't need more than that to get a compelling stereo. So unless you're going really high magnification, that kind of number will be adequate for a good photograph. All right. You only need to shoot one stack, and for the purposes of this discussion, we're going to assume that you are shifting focus from close to far, that you're starting your focus stack at the near point on the subject and you're ending it at the far point. If you're doing it in reverse, if you're shooting far to near, a lot of what I tell you will be backwards. So bear that in mind. If you're shooting in that direction and your results are not consistent with what I'm getting ready to tell you, that is why. Okay, how do we do this thing? How do we make a stereo pair? What you need to do, if you go to Lightroom or wherever you keep your photographs, and you have a stack that you have photographed using your normal technique, nothing different. I would avoid subjects that have a lot of crossing stuff. I'm getting ready to show you one with a lot of crossing stuff. So maybe that's not a good piece of advice in this case. It's always nice to pick something that has three-dimensional depth that is going to be striking when you see it in 3 dimensions. In this case, it's probably not going to be particularly striking, but it was one of the first unstacked groups of images I came across on the computer of mine. This is a moth that I found last year, dead as a doornail on the door, and yeah, I photographed a small stack. I think this is about 49 images. I've selected all of them in Lightroom, and I think I may have done a little bit of basic development on them, just a little bit of tweaking. Yeah, not much. In fact, probably not enough. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, I think that's all. So I don't do a whole lot before we go over there. Just really correct exposure is about it. With all the pictures selected, I go to Export and Export to Zerine Stacker. The reason you want to use Zerine for this, even though those of you who use Helicon will tell me that, yeah, Helicon has a 3D stacking program. It does, but it doesn't. It's not a real stacking not a real stereo program. It doesn't make it doesn't use the same technology of using a depth map, and it gives results that are really inconsistent and a little hard to visualize. This is by far your best bet. Here's the stack. It's all in there. I've looked at the first and last pictures, and they have the beginnings of something in focus. So what we're going to do is 2 things. We're going to tell we're going to tell Zerine that we want to do this as a stereo pair. To do that, we need to go to Options and then Preferences. Let me bring the window over there. In Preferences, as soon as I can find my pointer, here it is. We need to go to Stereo Rocking. In Stereo Rocking, we need to tell the program to generate a stereo pair. Ignore the rocking sequence for right now. That is it's a more advanced technique that gives less satisfying results. I'll probably be talking about this on Saturday. The number of output images, it can be anything you want. If you choose a larger number, then it will divide the movement or the synthetic movement of the camera into smaller pieces. But I'm going to tell you the way you need to do it if you want to just make sure you get a good stereo picture. Make 2 images and make your shift limits as a percentage from +2 to -2. If you can remember the number 2, then you're set. That's all you've got to remember. 2 images, shift limits from +2 to -2. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of advanced advice for people who already know how to do this, but are wondering exactly how you come up with this number. If you want to ignore top tip number 6, which was +2 to -2, remember this. If you're an advanced user, then there is a calculator in Zerene that you can get to by saying show calculator. It's not terribly complicated, but it will give you a more accurate shift to use. Now, I asked Rick last night, how often do you use numbers other than +2 and -2? And he said not very often. This is a great starting place. If you are a more advanced user, start with +2, -2, and if you don't have enough depth in your output images, if you don't have the 3D effect you're looking for, increase the number. If you have artifact that's ruining the image, decrease the number. That simple. And I took a picture the other day of a crystal, and I did it with a very small stack with fairly large steps, and it took 0.5 and -0.5 to get a good, believable 3D image. If I had done this, a moth with 450 slices at very small steps, I might be up at 4 and -4. Big stacks with small steps usually will need a slightly bigger number to get a good 3D effect. Small, flat objects like crystals on a slide will need a very small shift. Remember that, and you'll be in good shape. I think that using the calculator is great, but guessing and correcting is what I do, because you'll see it's pretty quick. So once you've done this, you've picked the number of images, you've picked the shift of 2 to -2. All you have to do then is hit OK. Go to your stacking menu in Zerene and align and stack all. PMax only. Now, why PMax only? The reason that I do PMax only when I'm doing stereo is because it is virtually impossible to retouch using this technique, which is also why I don't slab when I'm doing stereo. If you're not slabbing, then you're not retouching. The only reason to slab is to speed up your retouch. If I'm not going to be retouching, I don't slab. So I just do one basic stack all the way through, and I just use PMax. There is no real way to combine the two satisfactorily without going through the whole retouching process. So I make do with the PMax. It's already finished the first stack, and it's running the second one even faster because it's not having to realign anything. So when this is finished, we're going to end up with 2 PMax outputs. And these are TIFFs, by the way. If you were using JPEGs, I think it would be even faster than this. Of course, I do have a fairly fast computer, but there we go, finished. Now, the next thing we need to do is look at these images as a stereo pair to see if we have the effect we're looking for. To do that, we go to Tools, Stereo, And actually, before we go to tools and stereo, I'm going to select both of the outputs, not just the second one. I'm going to select them both. You don't have to do this, but there will be a time later on where if you don't, you can get messed up. So select both of the pictures you want to look at as a pair. Go to Tools, Stereo, Start Preview. Now you see both of the PMax outputs, and because of the way that I stack the images, they are going to be in cross-eyed orientation. I didn't say anything about this yet today, but in cross-eyed orientation, you can do what's called free viewing. You can look at this and using a technique of crossing your eyes and looking through the photograph, you can create a third image with full three-dimensional depth that'll appear in between the two and make the others disappear. That's free viewing. You do it with crossed eyes, and this pair is called a cross-eyed pair. Now, I don't do that very well. I can form the image, but then I lose it again. So what I like to do is use my magic spectacles, which I should show you what they look like. These are my magic spectacles. They're very trendy, good-looking glasses from Rick many years ago. He sent me these. So these are used when you are looking at what's called a parallel pair. I'll show you a parallel pair. You can swap the sides like so. Now the pair is in parallel. What does parallel mean? This is a top tip, I'm sure. The parallel means that the left image is on the left side. So the right image, the image that's coming from the right eye, is also on the same side, the right side. So you have left side, right side in a parallel image, and you need glasses to view that. Without glasses, you can't fuse that up. Now, if we switch sides again and go back to the cross-eyed version, now we have the right image is on the left side and the left image is on the right side. That's the only difference between the two. This is the one that you can form by crossing your eyes, where it's reversed, right and left. And when we switch it to parallel, this is the left image. Well, the thingy's appearing on both, so that would be confusing. The one on the left is the left image, the one on the right is right. So when you're ready to then make a pair, and these actually look really good in the cross-eyed mode, I couldn't fuse it up, but with my glasses, the depth is fantastic on this. It's perfect. The +2, -2 was just right for this subject. So this is the parallel version. I'm going to go back to the cross-eyed because this is the way I do it, and if I always do it the same way, I don't mess it up. What I'm going to do now is stop the stereo preview, go to Tools, Stereo, and Make Stereo Pair. That will take that preview that we just looked at, and it will make it into one photograph with those two images in that order. So this is the cross-eyed pair. Now I'm going to do exactly the same by highlighting the two output images, like so, and I'm going to go to Tools, Stereo, Start Preview, just like we did before. Now it's showing me the same cross-eyed preview that we saw last time. If you try to look at this with your glasses, it will look weird. It'll look like the back leg, the far legs are coming out the front. So we know that this is cross-eyed. We want to make a stereo pair that is parallel. So we'll swap sides, stop the stereo view, go to Tools, Stereo, Make Stereo Pair. So this second stereo pair is now parallel for viewing with glasses. Here's probably the most important tip I can give you to save you from embarrassing yourself like I frequently do when I show these things to people in meetings. I click on the first one. You'll remember this is the cross-eyed one. Go to File, Save Output Image, just like you normally would, Save Image, except when it comes to Save As, what I do is I go to the end of the naming convention that Zerine has. I put another dash and I put X. Then I hit save. That tells me when I'm looking at images that are stereo pairs, I expect to see an X if it's a cross-eyed viewing picture, or a P if it's parallel. So let's save the last one, which was parallel, as parallel by going to save, save again, and then the name for me to save it is going to be dash capital P. So I just look for the last letter. If it's an X, it's cross-eyed. If it's a P, it's parallel. Save. Fantastic. So we have just saved both of the output images. Now, why did we save both of them? Well, you're using these presumably to enter a competition. And one of the ways that that you can do well in this competition, though Rick said it doesn't bother him either way, but it would help me a lot, is if you could present all three, or correction, both the parallel and the cross-eyed image pairs in the same photograph. To do that, you need to show 3 photographs, and they are always going to be in this order. They're always going to be the left photograph, left eye photograph, right eye photograph, left eye photograph in a row. And I'm going to show you how to do that as well. If you do that, then people with cross eyes will know to look at the 2 images on the right to fuse up into a stereo. People with glasses will always look at the 2 on the left and fuse them up with their glasses. And if you do that, then when your picture comes through in the competition, Rick can look at it in real time. He can look at it anyway in real time. His brain does something funny with the parallel ones, and he can look at them. But I can then put on the glasses and look at the part that I can see, and he'll look at the other part, and then we can talk about it without me getting confused. Make sense? So how do we do that? Let me tell you first about retouching. Shall we go back into Lightroom now and find these photographs, because they'll be saved over there too. So let me do that and tell you a couple of things about post-production. So we'll go back to Lightroom, and like you always do when you've done a stack, it's going to not automatically come back into Lightroom. You're going to have to actually bring it back by going to where is it? File. It's library. Sorry, library and synchronize. There it is, synchronize folder, and that will go find the 2 pictures. There they are. Import new photos, and we hit synchronize, and the 2 images that we made will show up in Lightroom again eventually. 1, 2. Okay. Now I've already forgotten which is which. So if we open it up and look at the file name, it ends in an X. This is the cross-eyed pair. How about that? It worked. If we open the other one, ends in P. There you go. That's the parallel pair. Now, about post-processing or editing your photographs, you can do pretty much anything you want in the develop module in Lightroom, so long as it is to both images. In other words, global adjustments. Let's make some global adjustments here. Let's brighten it up, pull back the highlights, bump up the no, let's not bump up the shadows. Drop the blacks even further. That helps get rid of some of the haze. Add a bit of dehaze. Yeah, that helps too. And I don't know, little clarity, little color. Doesn't matter. Anything you want to do, as long as you're doing it to the whole photo group, the whole pair, then you're good. Now, it's important that you also do it to the other photograph, because in a minute I'm going to show you how to combine these into a triptych. So what I would probably do is select both of them, make sure that auto sync is on, and that will apply the changes to both photographs. though it doesn't appear to have done, does it? Let's copy the develop settings. For some reason can't do it. Darn. I'll tell you what, I'll just reset it on this one. There we go, and I'll select them both and I'll make those same changes very quickly. I don't know why I want them, but I do. So there you go. As soon as these are done, we're going to take this over into Photoshop to make that triptych. Now, there are many different ways that you can do this, and I am not suggesting that mine is the best. I'm just suggesting that mine is my way, and it's the only one I can show you how to do because it's the only one I know. But it's how I do it. So what we're going to do is, we know that this is the P, the parallel. So we know that this is the left eye image, this is the right eye image. This is all we need to take over to Photoshop. So what we can do is, we can right click and go to Edit in Adobe Photoshop. We're going to edit this as a copy with Lightroom adjustments, as you normally would. And it's going to ask me to convert to the working space that the working color space that I use. Fine, done. All right, so here they are. This is the parallel pair over in Photoshop. What we need to do is create one image that has this image on the left, this image in the middle, and then this image on the right. And many ways you can do this, but this is the way I do it. Just bear with me. I take a marquee tool. This is the rectangular marquee, and I make a frame around the subject. I try to kind of position it in the middle of the frame, and for simplicity I'll just take it down to the bottom there. Then I will note the size. In this case, the width is 4250 and 3573, and I write that down. 4250, 3273 is the height. Now, this is important because you have to do a little bit of mathematics. The next thing we're going to do is create a blank project. I'm going to go to File, New. This will open up a new document window like this for Photoshop. Now, I'm going to make a custom size that is based on 3 widths of the size picture that I made, which I said was 4250. So that would be 1950, 1950 pixels across. So I will write that in. The width is going to be, no, it's 19,500 pixels across. That's 3 times the width of this window. The height is going to be exactly the same, 3273. That won't change. Okay, I'm going to put it on a black background. You could put it on a white background. Let's put it on a white background. That would be a good way to get a border around it. Okay. Actually, that won't work, but it'll help you to see it. And then hit Create. All right. That's too long. Did I do my math wrong? Hang on. 12. No, I think I did my math right. What did I do wrong? Let me go back and do that again. I definitely did something wrong because that is not the right size. That's far too big. So, oh, okay. My bad. That should be 12, shouldn't it? 13. Okay, 13,750. No, that's better. It's close enough. We can trim it later on. So this is our new project window. Let's go back to our images. Here they are. So I've cut out the left image, and if I go to the window, I'll tell you what, don't let me confuse you here. I'm going to deselect that by hitting Command D, and I'm going to make a copy of the background, Command J, and I'm going to work on this copy so I don't mess up the background. All right, so we're in this layer. I'm now going to take that marquee right there, and I'm going to make the square that I wanted to for our first picture. Now with that selected, all I have to do is hit Command J, and it will make a copy of just that guy. Watch, when I turn the other layers off, that's all we've got. And that's on layer 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename layer 2 as, so I don't forget, it's going to be left. Okay, see why I'm calling it left? It's on the left-hand side. Perfect. Enter. All right. Now I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to go back to layer 1, take another one of these boxes, a selection tool, and try to make about the same size. What did I say? 4250? Yeah, it doesn't have to be exact. That's close enough. And then if I make another copy of this by hitting Command J, that will put this, if we turn that one off and this one off and this one off, we'll see now I've got on layer 2 just the right image. I'm going to change the name of the right image to right. This will make sense in a minute. Okay, now all we have to do is turn on the other image. We grab our move tool, and we can just take that image up to our, that's the wrong project. We'll go to the next, I think it's the next one here. There you go. Still holding down the move tool, and I can drop the image in there. Because we measured the actual width of the cube, the square that we made, we can make this window just the right size to hold 3 of them. So there's the left one. Go back to the picture. Let's grab the right one now. Go back to our new document. We'll drop the right one in. Or am I in the wrong? I'm sorry, I ended up on the wrong one. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, it ended up on the wrong one. As you can see, I stacked this earlier today just to make sure it was going to work. There we are. This is the one we're on. So I'm going to take the right image and drop it in our new project. Okay, then I'm going to go back one more time, and I'm going to grab the left image again. So I've basically taken, used the selection tool to, I wish it would show me the, there it is. Okay, so I've now got a left, a right, and a left. This is what you want to have in the triptych. So I'm going to go ahead and position all 3 of them because they're basically the same size, and then we can just simply crop that out. Well, you know how to crop pictures out, so it's just a matter of cropping out everything but the edge there, and you'll have to come up with the correct ratio, of course. Now, some people think that it is easier to see these images fused when you have a border around them. I don't necessarily think that's true, not for me anyway, but certainly you can do that. If you want to leave a border, you can do that. Right now I've got a useless ratio. That's a little bit closer, but it's probably going to have to be close to 30 to 9, I think. The ratio, nope, that's not doing it. Well, it might. Let's see. Anyway, figure out what ratio you need in order to get these things to fit. It doesn't really matter for the competition. Well, that did work, didn't it? Almost. Good enough for the demonstration. So there you go. Now that's kind of scrappy. You'd clean it up, but this is the cross-eyed pair. This is the parallel pair. If you submit this in the competition, you will win brownie points from me, definitely. Possibly not from Rick, but definitely from me, because that will make it a lot easier for me to look at. So that's how you make a triptych, because I know people have been asking me about that. So what else do I need to say? I've got some more top tips. We talked about editing. What I didn't talk about is what you can and can't or should and should not do in Photoshop. Let me tell you that now. You're going to have to remove the pin. But when you're doing that, you're removing the pins from 3 individual photographs, because there are now 3 of them in the triptych. You could remove the pin before you move the images into the triptych, of course, and then there'd only be 2 you'd have to move. But here's the key. Do as little as you possibly can when you're editing individual photographs, because remember, these photographs have been altered, so they're not the same. And when your brain tries to fuse them up, if you've done something in one that you haven't done in the other, it leaves a weird gap in the fused image, and people will see it and it will not look good. Last time we did this in the competition, we had one submission that was a really interesting flower. I can't remember who submitted it, but it was a lovely stereo pair of a flower, and it was one that Rick looked. He was very eager to like this photograph because it looked really well done. The problem was he couldn't fuse it up. He couldn't get it to look right, and it turns out the reason for that was the photographer had changed the geometry by rotating the picture to make it look better as far as the composition. And it did look better as a single image when it was rotated like that. But when you try to do that to the elements in the stereo pair, it knocked them out of sync with one another. So when you're trying to fuse them up, everything's in the wrong place and they didn't fuse. You ended up with this smear between parts. So don't do anything like that. Don't shift or change the geometry or increase the size of one of the elements of the 3 elements in your triptych, or one of the 2 elements in your stereo pair. Don't do anything to one of them that you aren't absolutely positive you're also doing to the other one. So go back and forth, removing the pin. I like to do it by darkening the background if I'm using a dark background so that it's uniformly black, and then I'll use the clone stamp tool and remove the pin in small pieces. I haven't tried the remove tool. It worries me a little bit because it is going to treat each of these pins differently, and we need them to be treated exactly the same to avoid discrepancies. So that's the rule of thumb, is when it comes to global editing, do whatever you want. You want to send it over to get it sharpened in Topaz, knock yourself out. If you're going to be fiddling around with individual parts of a photograph, avoid it if possible. I believe that, well, I don't believe, I mean, I've seen it with my own eyes. When you have a little bit of artifact, you may notice in this set of photographs here that you've got some artifacts, some haze around the antenna, some other stuff here around the foot. When you fuse those images up, in this case parallel images, with your glasses, a lot of that artifact just disappears, because there's something about looking at this in 3 dimensions that makes the artifact seem like part of the photograph. Which is weird, but it makes it much less important to me that you go around trying to clean up every little abnormality that the stacking process causes. And the other thing, of course, is to avoid a lot of overlaps, like I didn't do here, with limbs overlapping one another to get less artifact. But this one actually stacked really well. If you're cross-eyed, of course, you'd want to look at that pair. Yeah, I haven't done any editing to this photograph or to either of these, but the only thing I would do in this case would be to remove the pin, and I would do it by doing the edit on the final triptych when this was flattened, and I would remove the pin a little bit at a time with the clone stamp tool. That would just be my preference. My goodness, once again, I have run out of time. The fact that some people appear to be able to fuse image pairs that have a border around them is, well, Rick told me that last night, and I'm the opposite. I find they're easier to fuse without a border, just if they're all on a black background. But if you want to put a border around them, let's go back to the original. If you wanted to put a border around, well, I just accidentally cropped it. Let's say you wanted to put a border around one of these photographs. All I would do would be to get a square using the shape tool, a rectangle tool, and I would make a rectangle the same size for each of the images right around my subject, like so. I would have no fill, and I would make the stroke, oh, I don't know, pretty big. I don't know what it's giving me here, about 100. Let me see. 81 pixels. That's good. 81 pixels and white. And hit OK. And there you go. Now you've got a border around your subject. You can now even copy that. You can copy this square by just clicking on anywhere on the picture, and this will pop up, create another rectangle, hit OK, and there you go. You've got another one. And you use the move tool, and you can put your rectangle like so. And then you've got the borders that apparently are so nice. And that will always make the rectangle the same size as the first one you made. So if you did this on the triptych, you could just bang, 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 have 3 rectangles, 3 borders, and Bob's your uncle, or words to that effect. It is 3 o'clock. I cannot believe I have got everything talked about, but didn't get a chance to say hello. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Who's here? Joseph, David, Joseph, Nick, Joseph. Joseph's here. Hey, Joseph. Andrew's here. Too late for what, Andrew? Klaus is here. Hey, Klaus. Klaus, Harold sent me an email, or sent you an email. I don't know. If there's a border, you have to pay attention to something called a stereo window. SPM allows window tuning. Okay, if you're going to use a border, you cannot move the subject around independently in that border. It has to be in the same place within the confines of the box. I guess that's what Joseph's talking about. If you move the boxes closer together or farther apart, that makes the image appear closer and further away. But don't worry about that. Just eyeball it. If when you're done and you look at it, if it looks funky, do it again. Take another picture. Have I covered everything? Do you think you can go do one of these now? This will be a recording. This will be a video. And I went through everything quickly. But if you watch it again, you'll know everything you need to know to make a good stereo pair. I am really excited to see what you guys come up with. Yeah, I will publicly shame you if you don't submit a picture. I won't. I wouldn't do that. That's not my way. Diane is here. Greetings. And who else? Zeno. Good to see you, Zeno. And Arctic Penguin. Juniper Lane. Juniper, I don't believe we've met. Greetings. Welcome, and do come again. It's all Greek to you. It shouldn't be, though. It's not hard. It's not hard. We'll teach you. We'll help you. Micromaniac. It can be done by moving the subject laterally a very small amount and stack each view. Yes. And synthetic is much easier. Absolutely. I think synthetic, it just takes all the guesswork out of your project. Nick has corrected my spelling of kumquat. Thank you. Yeah, somebody had to. Graham, greetings. Callum Johnson. Let me see. Screen record is amazing. Don't know what that is, but hopefully you were able to see all of this. Demetrius is here from Greece. Art is here from not Greece, and Bud the Bouncer is here. Did I say hello to Ingolf and Anita and Klaus? I hope so. Harold, greetings. Not golfing. Sorry about your back. And that's it. We're out of time. It's already after 3. I am actually going to talk to somebody about photographing babies in a hospital. Too much information? All right, guys, I will see you on Saturday at the Pazoom. If you want to come to Pazoom, you're not a Patreon member, join Patreon. I'll be forever in your debt. Well, yeah, I will be. Yeah, that will get you in on Saturday. And I will pop over to Patreon and put the invitation for Saturday's meeting over there right now. And the videos I said I would post 2 days ago, I haven't got a chance to do it, but I'm going to do it in the next 24 hours. See you guys on Saturday. Otherwise, see you next week. Good luck with your stereo. Have a great week.